Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين ورحمة للعالمين. وصلى الله على آله الطاهرين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أوصيكم عباد الله ونفسي بتقوى الله. These days the Shia community on a global level is going through a lot of distress and anxiety in relation to the events happening in Middle East, especially in Lebanon. In this first khutbah, I would like to talk about this concept of what is terrorism and who is a terrorist. In modern times, this term was used first after the French Revolution, when the Jacobins came to power, after the monarchy was eliminated. And that is a time which is described as the reign of terror, where the rulers basically employed violence to compel obedience to the state. It's interesting to note that in the first usage of the term terrorism in modern European history, it was used for state terrorism, terrorism by a government. Later on, of course, the term became more common, and it's also used for any group of people who organize an armed uprising to oppress the rule of a foreign government. And this is where, we see this term, that it's being used in a very subjective manner. When we hear the terms like, one man's terrorist is another's freedom fighter, this is a reality. For example, if you look at the Irish Republican Army, IRA, just about 20 years ago, they were labeled as terrorists because they started an armed, uprising against the centuries of British rule on Ireland. But now they are part of the government, and everything is fine. But there was a time when they were also classified as terrorists. Another famous example during our time would be the military wing of the African National Congress and its leader, Nelson Mandela, who was labeled by the apartheid regime of South Africa as a terrorist. Put in prison, but at the end he emerged as one of the important, political figure on the world scene. And so when we talk about this term, this famous saying that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, there is truth in that. And there has been an attempt by certain Western governments to limit the use of terrorism only to non-state groups, and actually to prevent the use of the word terrorism for governments and the states, while both of them are doing the same thing. Just because one is in power, it is a state, it's the government, it's okay for them to do that. And this is where we see that even this definition of terrorism, according to the UN General Assembly resolutions, is very clear on this issue. It doesn't matter whether this is a non-state group doing it or the state committing terrorism. Resolutions 39/159 and Resolution 44/29 do not distinguish between state terrorism and non-state terrorism. And the rationale is basically we have to avoid selective endorsement and implementation of the texts that condemn terrorism. So you can't say only, non-state entities are to be condemned, where if a state does the same thing, we cannot condemn that. Interestingly, the UN General Assembly Resolution 42/159 condemns one of the form of terrorism is occupation. And it upholds the right of people to self-determination and the legitimacy of national liberation movements. When this resolution was tabled on December 7th, 1987, out of the 156 countries at that time who were asked to vote on this issue, 153 agreed out of 156. One abstained, and 2 of them rejected. You know who were the 2? This is 1987. It was the US and Israel. So you have the whole world on one side, saying that we will not distinguish between terrorism committed by non-state, entities as well as the state entities. Those who opposed were only United States of America and the state of Israel. And this is where, we had to realize that even now, the whole issue is, we are fighting against terrorism. Look at the numbers. Even if you go to the Bible, which says life for a life, these people on the Hamas side, they killed how many? 1,400 something. Even if you go by the biblical rule, and actually Quran also agrees with it, an-nafs bin-nafs, the same quotation from Torah is there. But now we are talking about more than, 30,000 innocent civilians, children and women included in that. And so what is that? You say, no, this is, Israel has a right to defend. This magical word is being used in all the actions committed by the state. Paul Pillar, one of the writers and commentators on this issue, he has a very interesting article where the title of the article is "How we can win how we conveniently ignore the terrorists among our allies." And then he raises this question. He says, if a group like Hamas kills civilians, it is terrorism. But if Israel kills thousands of children and women, it is collateral damage. Why be selective in condemning terrorism, whether it is by non-state entities or state entities? People forget even the history of our own time. Israel should look at its own present history. Netanyahu should actually look at his own predecessors. One of the prime ministers was Menachem Begin. He was the leader, before the state of Israel was created, leader of Argun group during the Second War. And he was a hardcore terrorist. His group bombed the King David Hotel in Jerusalem in 1946, killing 91 people, injuring many others. His group terrorized Arabs into fleeing their homes and villages, especially the massacre in the village of Deir Yassin, which is a very important element in the history of present Palestine, in which more than 100 Arabs, including women and children, were killed. And after the establishment of the State of Israel, began actually establish a right-wing party, which later became the core of the Likud party of Netanyahu now. So these are actually the origins of they go from, terrorism. If you want to talk about terrorism, let's go back. Not even centuries. Just look at this 1 century. Yitzhak Shamir, another prime minister, at the same time as Begin, he was a co-founder of another, terrorist group in the 40s known as Stern Gang. And this group specialized in assassinations, murdering in Cairo in 1944 the British Minister of State responsible for the Middle East. And then in 1948, assassinating the Swedish diplomat and UN mediator for Palestine. Why? Because he was more, fair towards the Palestinians. And yet Israel now is preaching to the world about terrorism. And this is where, we ask the question. The use of the label terrorists by Western governments, it is only reserved for those who toe their political line. There is no fairness in that. If you want to just look at the actions as a basis of terrorism, the condemnation has to be on both sides. Otherwise, it is nothing but hypocrisy, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Baqarah, ayat number 11, He says, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا تُفْسِدُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. When it is said to them, do not create corruption on the earth, قَالُوا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ. They say that, we are the peacemakers. We put things in order. أَلَا أَنَّهُمْ هُمُ الْمُفْسِدُونَ وَلَكِنْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no. Indeed, they are the troublemakers, but they are so much steeped into that arrogance that they do not even realize that. And this is where, even the labels of terrorists for one group or another, we do not just buy it simply. We have to look at the facts behind it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to, lift the veils from our eyes and minds on the important issues of our own time. إن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله العزيز بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم ونشهد أن لا إله إلا هو العطوف للعباد بجوده والعواد على المذنبين بحلمه ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين ورحمة للعالمين صلى الله عليه وآله الداعين إلى سبيل الله بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة قادة الأمم وأولياء النعمة ومعدن الرحمة أوصيكم عباد الله بالتوبة عما سلف من ذنوبكم. Before I continue the second theme, just one more point I wanted to just, forgot to mention that, when we talk about, Itzhak Shamir, the prime minister, who was also one of the co-founders of a terrorist group in the 40s, at that time, because of the assassinations they had here in different places, in Egypt, basically there was, during the Palestinian police of that time, which was under the British mandate, there is actually a poster. You can go on Google and you will find that poster of the most wanted individuals. There are 3 pictures. The middle one is of Shamir. So we are not just talking from our own, Muslim sources here. Even now you can go and find that it is a reality as far as their past is concerned. Salawat. We as a Shia community in the last 13 to 14 centuries have gone through many ups and downs. There have been times, we have been in certain areas of the world, whether in Middle East or even in South Asia, in power. There have been times we have been suppressed. It depends on the locality and the circumstances of the time. Interestingly, during our time, what we have seen, as long as the Shia community is docile, doesn't stand up for its legitimate rights, they are known to be the peaceful Muslims. And, but as soon as the Shia community stands up for its right, this is where you will see the labels of radicals, extremists, and even terrorists is applied on them. If you look at the situation of the present history, Bahrain is one example. The Western powers always talk about democracy, human rights. What is happening there? You have a majority population, which is a Shia population, ruled by a minority, Sunni rulers, but the Western world doesn't really care about them. They don't talk about human rights over there. The way, their voice is stifled, they are not allowed to even easily move and go to other places. Many of their leaders and even ulama are in prison. And, it's interesting that when this Arab Spring movement started, where the masses would rise up against the tyrant rulers, starting from Tunis, Libya, Egypt, where even Mubarak was overthrown, going on to Yemen, then the movement was going to move to Bahrain. And there it was stopped. Why? Because the masses were the Shias. And this is where we see it is not really a fair game as far as the Shias are concerned. Look at Saudi Arabia. And then you go into the situation of Lebanon. I don't have the time in the Friday khutbah to talk about the last 100 years history of Lebanon. But it's worth studying. As long as Shias were docile, silent in Lebanon, they were the good guys. But with being good guys, they were deprived from all the resources of the governments, all the developments in the certain part of Lebanon. It's only when an individual like Imam Musa Sadr emerged as a leader, created this, awareness among the Shias. And he says, our numbers are now more than the other 2 groups, Sunnis and the Christians. We need to have our rightful place in the government and in the resources which are being allocated to the nation. And that's where we see, these are radicals. These are extremists. As long as you're quiet, mashallah. And this is the reality. And so when we look at the situation now in the Middle East, especially when it comes to Lebanon, let me echo the words of the Grand Ayatollah Sistani in the statement that he issued this week. And this is especially for those who say, oh, we don't need to care about them. This is your marja talking about. When especially referring to the Shuhada of Lebanon, where we, echoing the words of Ayatollah Sistani, we salute and praise the role of the Shias of Lebanon in liberating the Lebanese land from the Israeli occupiers, in protecting the shrine of Bibi Zainab in Damascus against the attack of the Nusra group and the ISIS and the Wahhabis. They were very close, and they wanted to actually, demolish that shrine. And so when we talk about, the praise, the way Ayatollah Sistani mentions, even in supporting the people of Iraq, in freeing their country, and especially the shrines, protecting the shrines of our Imams from the onslaught of ISIS terrorists. And as he mentions, as a shining stance in supporting the oppressed people of Palestine. And so I don't think we have to shy away, or put our hands down in shame or something. We have been a minority, but a courageous minority, which has from time to time stood up from the truth, even at the expense of giving their own lives. Remember one thing. I hear from many people, Maulana, what will happen? Is this the end? Is the Qiyamah coming soon? We have seen even worse than this. This is nothing. The Shia faith and the struggle of the Shia people has gone through different phases. There have been times where it seemed that this is the end of us. But have hope. Nothing, could be worse than what happened in Karbala. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guaranteed the survival of the line of the awliya and the a'imma through Hussein ibn Ali. Although Imam Sajjad was there, he survived. This was the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His wisdom. At that time, other Shias around were not able to come there. For them, this was the most distressful moment. But Imam Zainul Abidin came forward with his sabr, patience and knowledge, brought the community together. And this is where the Azaa of Sayyid al-Shuhada became the magnet to bring the community back. And that has served us even now. That legacy of Imam Sajjad. And this is where we have to realize that leaders come and go. Even Rasulullah didn't live forever. Quran has an ayat after the Battle of Uhud, when there was a cry on the field, when mushrikeen said, "Oh, Muhammad has been killed." Unfortunately, many Muslims just fled the ground, went on the mountains. But some of them were very steadfast, including Amir al-Mu'mineen protecting the Prophet. Allah revealed the ayat there in Surah Al-Imran, ayat 144, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Muhammad is nothing but a Rasul. وَقَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ. Many prophets and messengers have come before him. أَفَمَنْ مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلَ إِنْ خَلَبْتُمْ عَلَىٰ أَعْقَابِكُمْ. If he dies or if he is killed, are you going to turn back on your heels? Not only abandoning the battlefield, but living the faith? No. The mission will continue, the faith will continue, the mazhab will continue, because we always have the hope on the wali of our time, although he is in occultation, but he is there to protect this deen and madhab. Salawat. Let us end with a passage from Dua Iftitah. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا وغيبة إمامنا وكثرة عدونا وقلة عددنا وشدة الفتن والتزاهر الزمان علينا، فصل على محمد وآل محمد وعنا على ذلك بفتح تعجل وبضر تكشف ونصر تعز وسلطان حق تظهره ورحمة منك تجللناها وعافية منك تلبسناها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى إمام المتقين وأمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله عليه وعلى سيدة نساء العالمين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلوات الله عليها وعلى سيد الشباب أهل الجنة الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء عليهم الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليه الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على مولانا الحجة بن الحسن صاحب العصر والزمان ماحي آثار البدء والطغيان حادي بأمنية الشرك والنفاق حاسد فل البغي والشقاق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام ما اتصلت الليالي والأيام. اللهم عجل فرج وسهل مخرجا واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه